So Black Forest Labs, the folks behind one of the biggest AI image models out there, well, they've just dropped FLUX 2. And let me tell you, this is not just another update. People are calling it a total revolution, a whole new era for AI visuals.
But what does a revolution in AI image generation even mean? Are we just talking about making prettier pictures? Or is there something like way more fundamental changing under the hood? So yeah, let's dive in and really break down FLUX 2. We're going to see if it actually lives up to all that hype.
Okay, so to really get why this is such a big deal, we've got to take a step back. We need to look at the old guard, right? We need to talk about what was holding back its predecessor, FLUX 1, which, don't get me wrong, was already super powerful. All right, first up, the old way. Let's talk about the big problem that just had to be solved. See, for all the amazing things FLUX 1 could do with text prompts, it had this one huge blind spot, a real deal breaker for any creative pro who needed serious control.
In that blind spot, it all comes down to one single number, 0. Yep, 0. That's how many reference images FLUX 1 could handle on its own, natively. Straight out of the box, it was all text to image. You couldn't just hand it a picture of a character or a brand logo and say, hey, make it look like this. No way.
Now, of course, the community is brilliant and resourceful, right? So they found a workaround. They built these things called IP adapters, which kind of hacked the visual information into the model. But it was always just a patch. A Band-Aid. It led to all sorts of weird issues, like semantic drift, where the final image just drifts away from what you wanted, or this weird plasticky look, where all the nice texture gets lost.
And that is exactly why we're talking about a revolution. FLUX 2 isn't just FLUX 1 with a few patches. No, they threw out the old playbook and redesigned this thing from the ground up. The whole point was to kill that core problem and unlock a level of control we just didn't have before. So what do they change? Well, FLUX.1 had this kind of complicated setup with 2 different text encoders clocking in at 12 billion parameters. FLUX.2, it just scraps all that. Instead, it uses a single, massive vision language model from Mistral as its new brain, and it scales things up to a crazy 32 billion parameters. So we're not just talking bigger here, we're talking fundamentally smarter architecture. And the result of that huge redesign? It comes down to another number, 10. That's right, FLUX 2 can handle up to 10 reference images all at the same time, right out of the box. This is the absolute game changer. Just imagine, you can give it one image for a character's face, another for their outfit, one for the background style, and another for the exact color scheme, all in a single prompt.
This new architecture is like unlocking a whole new creative toolkit. And it's way more than just using multiple images. We're talking about using structured JSON prompts, like actual code for super complex scenes. You can nail your company's brand colors by plugging in the exact HEX codes. You can get typography that actually works for product mockups. Oh, and you can edit images at a whopping 4 megapixel resolution. It's nuts. And people are already seeing the impact. Like Bob Doyle Media put it perfectly, this ability to just blend up to 10 different reference images into one single cohesive picture, that's what really makes FLUX 2 different. It's opening up workflows that just weren't possible before.
Okay, but here comes the catch. Because all of this incredible, revolutionary power, it comes with a price. And trust me, it is a big one. This is not a model you're going to download and run on your everyday gaming rig. The hardware you need is, well, it's pretty staggering. So to run the full-fat FLUX 2 model at its normal precision, you're going to need over 80 gigabytes of VRAM. Just let that number sink in for a second. 80 gigabytes. That's way, way beyond what any consumer graphics card can handle. We're talking pro-level stuff like an NVIDIA A100. And this really gets to the heart of the problem. When it comes to FLUX.2, not having enough VRAM doesn't just mean things run a little slower. No. It's a simple yes or no question. It's a pass-fail test. Either the model fits on your card and it works, or it doesn't, and your performance just completely falls off a cliff. So why is it so black and white? It all comes down to speed. Your graphics card's VRAM is incredibly fast, moving data at something like 1,000 gigabytes per second. Your regular system RAM? It has to go through a much slower connection, making it about 15 times slower. So the moment the model has to push pieces of itself over to your system RAM, your generation times just explode. We're talking going from a few seconds to, like, minutes of just waiting. So that's the big question, right? How in the world can a regular person use this thing without owning a data center?
Well, the good news is the developers, working with NVIDIA and the community, have figured out some pretty smart ways to tame this beast.
The main trick is something called quantization. Think of it like compressing a huge file to make it smaller. If you use a 4-bit quantization, or Q4, you can get that VRAM requirement down to around 22 gigs. Now we're in the ballpark for high-end cards like an RTX 4090. And if you're willing to give up a bit more quality, a 2-bit version can get it running on cards with just 12 gigs of VRAM, which is pretty amazing.
But hold on, VRAM is only half the story. Because you're almost definitely going to be pushing some parts of the model to your system memory, you need a lot of that too, and it needs to be fast. Pretty much everyone agrees that for a smooth, stable experience, you really should have a whopping 64 gigabytes of system RAM.
And you should also know that there isn't just one FLUX 2. It's more like a family of models. You've got the Pro version, which is the best of the best, but you can only get to it through an API. Then there's FLEX, which lets you play around with the settings to balance speed and quality. And finally, you have Dev. That's the big one, the open-weight model that the community can actually download, compress, and tinker with at home.
Even with all this horsepower, it's not perfect. People like Bob Doyle Media have pointed out that some of the models, especially Flex, have their own kind of visual signature. He called it a fluxy look, something you can really see in the way it does skin textures. It's just a good reminder that, yeah, this thing is an incredibly powerful tool, but it's got its own personality and quirks you have to learn to work with. So what's the takeaway here? FLUX.2 offers this mind-blowing, truly revolutionary level of creative freedom, but at the same time it draws a pretty clear line in the sand. It kind of paints a picture of a future where the biggest thing holding you back isn't the AI's ability to understand you, it's just the raw horsepower of the computer you can afford. And that really makes you stop and think, right? Is that the future we're building?